Easy to apply, cheap and effective, glyphosate destroys all unwanted vegetation. The only things it leaves growing are the crops it's meant to protect. Marketed under the name Roundup, the herbicide is a Bayer Monsanto product. It's in use on 40% of Germany's farmland. It's also used in over 150 countries worldwide. Since it was introduced in the 1970s, over 10 million tons of glyphosate have been sprayed on crops, enough to fill 2,300 Olympic swimming pools. That makes it the most widely used weed killer in the world. It's also the most controversial. Environmental protection activists blame glyphosate for the disappearance of many plants which once grew wild in nature, and a corresponding loss of bird and insect populations. And they say it trickles down into the groundwater. Scientists have found traces of glyphosate in humans, which has crept into the food chain. The World Health Organization classifies glyphosate as probably carcinogenic to humans.
Let's get more on this story now with Heidi Hautala, one of the lawmakers in the European Parliament who had filed a suit. She joins us from Brussels. Ms. Hautala, thank you for joining us on DW. The European Food Safety Agency, according to today's ruling, now does have to release the studies on glyphosate. So that must be a victory for you. Did you get what you wanted?
Yes, we actually got more than we expected because it's a total victory in the key questions. There's an overriding public interest which goes above the commercial interests of the companies in terms of disclosure. So health and environment are more important than companies' financial and commercial interests. This is wonderful. And then the court actually defined the emissions into the environment, which was a bit of a key element in the dispute, as real, that not something which would be just hypothetical. So we have a landmark ruling also on the Aarhus Convention on public access to environmental information, which now confirms that when a substance is released into the environment by virtue of its function, it will have real emissions and they have to be covered by public access to information. So a very good judgment for health and safety.
Ms. Hautala, why is it so important to find out what is in the studies? What do you expect to find out about glyphosate?
Obviously, none of the four of us is a toxicologist. And the whole point is that science by nature has to be peer-reviewed. And since some of the data and studies remain confidential, according to EFSA's previous decision, which was now annulled, it's impossible for the scientific community to conduct a peer review. And now this is all going to be possible, and this will definitely add trust to the decisions that public authorities are taking.
But didn't the European Commission already declare this weed killer safe? Are you saying you don't trust that decision?
Yeah, that's the whole point, that of course if we have access to that information, which then can be reassessed and double-checked by the scientific community and researchers, then I would say that the trust will be there. So as it was mentioned, there was a controversial assessment by two different bodies in this question, and that of course raises questions and questions that must be addressed by a further scientific assessment. And I believe that EFSA actually also understands that such transparency is key to public trust, and it's a very important public authority, and I hope that they will take due attention to this judgment.
So this is about transparency, about public interest. What do you think this ruling today could actually change on the ground in the way that glyphosate is used?
I don't think there will be any change on the ground unless there's a very strong public attention and maybe more national restrictions to the use. And there have been national restrictions on close to kindergartens in public places. But the real thing will, in my view, come when the Commission has to look at the continuation of the permit of glyphosate, and that comes in a few years' time. So then certainly this ruling has an importance because then the scientific community will have a much better chance to see that things go right and that the scientific assessment of glyphosate is correct.
All right, Heidi Hautala, a member of the European Parliament for the Green Party, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.